good afternoon or good morning, depending where you're at in the world today. Thanks for taking a little bit of time to join us here. We're going to be talking today about some drain situations. I have what we refer to now as old Dave Kennedy, joining us, and new Dave or young Dave joining us. This Dave is brand new with the Noble Company. He's going to basically be stepping into old Dave's position as we put him out to pasture. Bury him, pick an analogy. But, you know, as you see, we have two Daves here now. We had business cards left over that said Dave, so we just thought we'd use that as part of the hiring criteria, try to go that route. But today we're going to talk about really a situation where most of you contractors are familiar. You show up at the job, the drain's been installed by the plumber or somebody, you've got the tile to do, and things don't line up. The elevation A and elevation B simply are not on the same page. So we're going to kind of address how you fix some of these situations without just pouring money down the drain. So, you know, with that said, you know, Dave will kind of explain a little bit here of what we're really talking about. Go ahead, Dave.
All right. So you've got your regular three-piece clamping ring drain. You show up to the job, the plumber's already installed the three-piece clamping ring drain, and you're going to do a topical applied membrane, whether it's a sheet membrane or liquid membrane. And the challenge to this is, how do we adapt down to a three-piece clamping ring drain that's made for a full mortar bed or water in, water out system that uses a pan liner? Typically with that drain, you'd use a pre-slope, a pan liner that would run directly into the clamping ring and upturn behind your backboard. But we want to do a topical applied membrane. Okay. So again, the challenge is how to adapt to that.
So just to be, we're talking about the membrane down into the clamping ring.
The membrane down in the clamping ring.
Right.
We still have to get our waterproofing membrane down into that clamping ring.
Right, so you just screw the head down.
So here's the challenge. So with this drain and the strainer in it, you can see how high the strainer is off the drain body. And I've got the strainer down as far as I can with this particular drain.
We do have a problem.
Yeah, so I have a good 1 1/4 inch and 3/8 of height between the strainer and my drain body.
Right.
Where my membrane is going to be. Well, if I had some very thick tile, maybe that would work.
Yeah, right.
So,
but
you know, with the typical 2x2 or 4x4 that's going to be in a multi-slope, that's not going to work for you.
I can't think too many tiles out there that are 1 1/4 thick.
No. So, and there's another example of a clamping ring drain. Now this clamping ring is a little thicker than the one that I have on here, so it's going to raise that up higher yet.
Right.
And we may have some situations where it's a floor drain too, and we have an example of a more of a commercial style floor drain. It's going to be higher yet, that we have to get a, you know, our topically applied membrane. Let's say it's a kitchen that needs to be a waterproof, or it's a locker room, so in the dry space it needs to be waterproof, and we still have to get our membrane or waterproofing down to the clamping ring drain.
So it's really any place where there's a drain and you have tile abutting that drain assembly, trying to get it to flush out is the challenge.
Correct, any clamping ring drain.
Okay.
So I'm going to show you an example over here of what Noble has come up with many years ago, and for you guys in the industry is known as the divot method, right? You've heard of the divot method before. Basically, it's a divot that you can see here down to your clamping ring drain, and that allows you to come up through the divot and on top of your mortar bed to adapt to a topical applied membrane.
So it's dropping it down.
Dropping it down.
Okay.
Now, to create that divot, they had kind of the old school way guys did this years ago. They used a frying pan. They would cut that out. They would stick it down in there and put your dry pack mortar around that. So Noble has, with the NobleFlex drain flashing, we developed that to adapt down from topically applied membrane down to the drain. We come up with a foam tool to create that divot. And you can see that it is the same shape and height as your NobleFlex drain flashing.
Right. Even with the old frying pan method, you still had an issue with the membrane dropping down.
You did.
So this is really taking care of that cuts and pie shapes and.
It did. If you, let's say you have this divot here. Jake's got the NobleFlex drain flash up. Okay, you have the divot here, and then you were just going to use a topical applied membrane, a sheet membrane,
Right.
and try to adapt down through that drain body without the NobleFlex drain flashing. If you tried to put that on here and then shove it down and tie it into that drain body, and then try to get this membrane down with that divot in there, all you're going to do is have puckers and everything. Now you could slice and dice this into the divot, and then just creates a whole lot of part or pieces that could possibly leak.
And a lot of potential.
A lot of potential
seams and
leak
leaking
on
stuff, yeah.
that.
So the NobleFlex really eliminates that puckering or fish mouth that you get from pushing it down.
It does. We preform these here, heat form them, so now we have a perfect fit to that and perfect adaptation to
Right,
that.
right.
Now, we have different heights on those. Here's a 3/4 inch. We start out with 3/4 inch. We have 3/4. This is 1.8 inches. We have 1.5 inches. We have 1 3/4 inch, and also 2-inch depth too.
Okay, so that 2-inch depth is when the drain's really out of elevation.
Yeah,
Or the
so
mud bed is real thick.
so I've been on a lot of job sites where I've walked in and the clamping ring drain is buried down in the concrete, especially on commercial jobs where the plumbers have set that on the first pour, and then the concrete guys come in and they'll do another finish pour on that. And they don't take into consideration that there's going to be a secondary pour, and that drain body is sunk down into the concrete, where even though you may only have, you know, an 1.5 inch pour on top, but it's a 2-inch depth on the drain body
Right.
that you have to,
So then you basically go in there and chisel that out or cut that out and
you would have to chisel out. So
go in there with a tool and reshape it. essentially.
yeah, so the NobleFlex would then adapt down
Yep.
into that.
Yeah, I think, I mean,
That's why we have, again, that's why we have, and we do some custom sizes on this, 2.5, and we have gone up to 3-inch depths
right.
too.
I mean, with Dave, is that something that you've ran into in the field as a commercial contractor in the past?
Yeah, quite often. Concrete guys and plumbing guys are using 2 different benchmarks,
Right.
and you end up with drains all over the place.
But you got to try to get it, figure out how to make it work.
Yep.
So this would be a good option for that.
Okay. So we're going to do a installation here on this mortar bed. In this particular mock-up, we're actually going to be using a liquid membrane as our topical applied membrane with our NobleFlex drain flashing. We're going to be using our aqua blue liquid membrane. So first of all, we're going to take our NobleFlex drain flashing, just peel the label off it. Okay. We're going to take some modified thin set. Now, you can use modified thin set, or you can use Noble EXT to bond the drain flashing down to the top of the mortar bed.
So bonding with NobleFlex down there, everybody's using a basically typical latex modified thin set.
Latex modified thin set.
Filters in it.
Yep. Now,
Probably go with a rapid set if you wanted to.
you could do a rapid set. Now, if you're going to use our EXT to bond that in, this mortar bed has to be completely dry.
Right.
Or otherwise the EXT can
Right now.
emulsify. Don't
No,
worry
you-
about getting some down in here. It's fine. Doesn't hurt anything if it's down there. But again, you want to make sure you have enough coverage here.
So you're spreading your thin set into the divot as well so that it's totally supported.
Yeah, you
I
can
mean,
put
the
a
mortar
little,
bed you have, there's a standard 4-to-1, 5-to-1.
yep, 4-5-1. There are some premixes that you can use to create your mortar bed. All right, got my thin set in there. Now, I have to make not only a mechanical bond with my clamping ring, but I have to make a chemical bond too,
Right.
just like you would a pan liner.
So right now your clamping ring has been removed. You left
Yep.
the bolt heads in there so you don't drop them down the drain pipe.
That's right. Now, there's a reason for I leave the bolt heads in too as I'm installed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and use our NobleSeal 250 sealant. This is a low VOC moisture cured sealant. Okay. If you're using this sealant to do all your seaming, corners, and bonding into the drain, you can immediately flood test with it.
Right.
So So I'm going to put this bead of sealant right on a clean surface of the drain body. In this case, this is a cast iron clamping ring drain.
It's suitable with plastic as well.
Suitable plastic as well.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead now and take my drain flashing. I'm going to set this on. Okay, get it right into the divot. Okay. Just take my knife, make some X's on my drain flashing.
A little firm pressure, you can see right where the bolt heads
Yep, it's
are.
right where the bolt heads are. Yep. Just an X on top of them. Carefully cut so you don't cut into the flashing and create a leak outside of the clamping ring. Okay. Now that I've got that cut, I'm going to go ahead and then cut out the hole of the diameter of the drain body.
The inside.
Of the inside of it, yes.
Yeah,
And you
okay.
want to make sure you get all of it out, all the way up to the diameter of the drain body. And don't leave any hanging over. The reason for that is you've got, and I'll show you in a minute here, I take my clamping ring. I'm going to go ahead and take my margin trowel. I'm just going to tool this in. Okay. Okay. See how that bonded down? And I'll then get rid of my excess here.
So that NobleFlex is laying nice and flat right now.
Laying
right tight to the truck,
nice and
right?
flat on there. Yep.
You cut the bolt heads out, so they're really no larger than the bolt itself. So there's
Right. Yep.
the least amount of
Yep.
basically holes in that thing as possible.
Make sure that my drain flashing is down tight to the surface. Okay.
Now, one thing I don't know if we touched on or not, Dave, is determining from one depth to the other. That's determined by your tile elevation and how far it's got to drop to get down to the clamping ring.
That's correct.
Okay.
So then I'll take my clamping ring at that point. Remove my bolts. Set my clamping ring on there.
While you're doing that, Dave, point out that before you get that bolt in, that drain, I believe that is clamping ring is also reversible if you needed additional height.
Some of them are. So if you have channels that are on both sides, some will have channels on both sides.
Yep.
Especially in the plastic PVC ones, you'll see that they are reversible to get both sides. This
Okay, this one
particular
is
one
not.
doesn't have channels on both sides, so I have to make sure that my weep channels are down on my membrane. And the reason for that is if I turn it upside down, I've actually created a dam
Right.
at that clamping ring,
Okay.
and the water won't properly weep.
Okay.
For that. Go ahead and replace my bolts on this. Get the right ones here, right in front of the right holes here. Yeah, okay. Okay. Right in the right holes there.
I see that it looks like there's possibly a question up there on the board or not. I don't know whether new Dave with younger eyes can read that or not.
It's a question about, can they order this?
Oh, the webinar itself will be available when it's complete. It might take a day or two to get it uploaded, but yes, it will be available.
Okay. Getting through the membrane with the bolt sometimes is a little bit of a challenge. I might have to cut some of the membrane away. That's the thing with the cast iron clamping rings. They usually don't have a key in them,
Right.
like the plastic ones
Yeah, I was
do,
noticing that.
where you can leave the bolts in them
And
and then just key it over.
right. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier.
It does make it easier. They have to go ahead and create more of a hole here to get that in. Ah, come on. We're getting there.
Oh, best laid plans.
Best laid plans, yes. Always got to be that one where it's going to be tougher. There we go. There we go.
So basically that's just, being bolted into place or clamped into place.
Yes.
And your strainer, which is really your tile elevation, will be, threaded into that, which can be adjusted up or down. I'm sure you want this,
Yeah.
typically slightly below the other elevations, so the drains or flows properly.
Okay, then just snug it, don't over tighten it. And now I've created a watertight seal
Okay.
at that point.
It's really a
Good point.
mechanical connection.
Mechanical connection.
Yeah.
So from here, I can go ahead and apply my topical applied membrane. Again, we're going to be using our aqua blue liquid membrane.
Yep.
Typically with aqua blue on a mortar bed, you would do a first coat would be a prime coat.
Right.
And that would be a 10-to-1, 10 part aqua blue to 1 part water. And then 30 minutes later, then you would apply your second full strength coat, allow that to dry, and then your third full strength coat to create the waterproof membrane.
Now, in most situations, I know we're not going to do it here because of the time factor, but you would simply fill this divot up first with a mortar before you put your liquid membrane on it typically?
Either way, you can do it now or do it later. We'll demonstrate that on the next mock-up, how to do the dry pack mortar and fill this up.
Okay.
But we use with our liquid membrane for, let's say, today's purposes, we're just going to apply 1 coat. And what we're going to want to do is that 1 coat in here, and we're going to transition that coat onto the NobleFlex drain flashing at least 2 inches.
Right. That's a very pleasing color. I mean,
yes. Nice and blue.
Yeah,
Cheery.
Yeah, it is. It's a happy color. What are you laughing about, Jake?
Singing the blues.
Do I scent blueberry in that? Or is that just my imagination?
I think it's your imagination.
Yeah. That would be something if we could do that. Grape. Yeah. So you're basically just rolling that on top of the edge of the
I'm rolling on top of the edge of it, yep.
Yep.
Like I said, with that first prime coat, it's going to fill in all the pores.
Right.
30, and then 30 minutes later, we'll do a second full strength coat, and it'll build up nicely.
I would imagine that in most cases in the field, that NobleFlex would probably have been installed for a day.
Yeah,
So everything was dry and stuff.
Yeah, now you can install with our EXT, which once that cures up, boom, it's stuck to it, and it's not gonna bind up a bit.
Okay.
So again, once that coats are dry, go ahead with another coat on that. Always make sure you use your film gauge. At the end of the day, you want to have a 20 to 30 mil dry thickness of the
of each wet coat, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That was aqua blue going into the divot. So basically, if that was a conventional mortar bed on most commercial jobs, once this dries, you're really ready to set tile.
That's correct.
Okay. Nice. That was pretty easy. I mean,
so
when you run into that job or run into the drain on a commercial job and you can't quite figure out how to get everything lined out, it's really not that difficult. The expense of the foam tool and the niche isn't changing very much.
Not very much at all. No.
Versus, of course, you can always,
And we've had this method out there for, you can tell it's better, 25 years maybe.
Right. And really with this situation, it's not even really elevation, it's a drain issue. The drain simply won't go low enough
It's the drain
to line up. So it's not a matter of if the plumber put it in wrong or the mortar bed's too thick. It's the drain simply will not accommodate a thin set membrane.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. Let me get this out of the way before we drop it. So that was easy. I know you got some other products here to show us, Dave, that kind of makes it even a little bit easier than the foam tool method.
Yeah. So what we've done is taken the NobleFlex drain flashing, and we've actually installed the mortar, for lack of better words, we've installed the mortar bed under the drain flashing for you already.
It looks like you've eliminated the requirement for the foam tool.
Yep. Taking the same NobleFlex drain flashing, we put a high compression foam underneath that.
Yeah.
And it has a divot built into that. And you can see here.
Yep.
So
again, available in different depths.
Available in different depths. We have a 3/4 inch and 8 and 1.5 inch depth in those. It's called the NobleFlex SD. That's not-
Solid divot,
Yeah, or Super Dave.
Super Dave. Which Dave are you referring to?
This one.
That's-
The new Dave.
New Dave.
Yeah.
So again, this is going to be easier yet to install. It's going to eliminate the foam tool
Right.
for that mortar bed.
Yeah.
So to install this, simply remove the clamping ring or the strainer. And again, you're going to determine the depth of this by the height of the strainer.
Right. Right.
You're gonna have to measure that strainer down to your drain base and then determine that depth of that.
1.5 inches. That's pretty good.
Mhm. You're going to remove the clamping ring. Make sure your bolts are up again. And in this case, I'm going to put my 250 sealant on my drain body.
Just like before.
Like before.
And all that's really doing is bonding the membrane to the lower drain body.
It is. And then we're going to apply modified thin set to the bottom of the NobleFlex drain flashing. I have my
Okay.
assistant over here applying that for me.
Call it letters. Do we have any H's, Dave?
We have an O.
We have an O.
We have
Okay.
an O.
So the thin set here, again, it's just bonding it to the substrate so that it's solid to the floor. Like
Correct, yep.
anything else.
Yep,
Then you're
yep,
gonna basically mud up to that.
Yep, just a very thin coat of that on there. And as you can see, I've got modified thin set on this. I'm going to center this on my drain body.
I see that, I mean, the divot itself is actually a little bit larger than most of these drains. So there actually is some adjustability in there.
There
For
is.
any reason, the
Yep.
divot's off a little bit. It's really not gonna affect that.
And then, you get some of the commercial drains and they've got the 4-inch strainer as you
Right.
saw the other plastic ones. So it does accommodate for the larger clamping rings.
Yep.
Again, this time we'll just go ahead and cut the bolts, holes here, push that over.
Just a slight X on top and pop it through.
X on top, yep. Pop it through.
Okay.
Okay. Now, again, I will go ahead and cut out for my hole. So
And I notice on the bottom of this thing, there's actually a little relief here, which is just enough relief so that when it sits on top of the drain body, it's still all downhill. It's not really lifting this up at all.
That's correct.
So,
So
yeah.
a lot of, if you don't recess the clamping ring body flush to the substrate,
Yep.
this allows for that.
For the
clamping
thickness of that body.
A lot of times you'll see that clamping ring body just sitting on top of the substrate
Right.
without it being recessed flush. But if it is recessed flush, there's enough give to the drain
Yeah.
flashing to pull down in there. Okay, now I've got this cut. I'll take this case, I get this keyed out. So I'll just take clamping. And as you mentioned before, it has 2 adjustments, right?
Yep.
I can put the threads down or flip it and put the threads up for more adjustment.
Right. So if you needed, for some reason, a deeper mortar bed, you could put it in a high profile position to give
Correct,
you almost
yep.
another inch of depth
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, because
Okay.
this particular clamping has channels on both sides,
Yep.
allows you to do that. Again, I will place the clamping ring. I'll get these screws up high enough to key that in. Twist it and take the impact out. If you use an impact, be cautious not to over tighten. Or just
Yeah. Just
a nut or a nut driver, hand
just
nut
kind of
driver.
snug it. Yeah. Don't
Right.
set it at 28.
Don't set it 28. Here. So now I'm tied in at that point.
Okay, so we have no caulk at all above the membrane here. So we're not plugging up the weep
No
holes.
caulk at all. You never apply any sealant to a top of or on the top of the membrane between that and the clamping ring. Because what's going to happen is you've got weep holes
Right.
at the very top of this. And you want to, when you're done, you want to make sure that you can see down through those weep holes.
Okay.
It's very important. So the system weeps properly.
Right.
Now this is all installed, and from there, we can pour our mortar bed,
Okay.
right? So I've got my mortar bed. Dave DeKam whipped it all up and
Right.
mixed it, and boom, there you go.
Just to, not to confuse anybody, this is a simulated mortar bed.
This is a simulated mortar bed.
bed.
Yes, we would actually pour that mortar bed for time purposes, so it's flush to the top of the NobleFlex drain flash.
Oh, I
Or
just
the
wanted to make
SD.
sure everybody was clear on that.
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
we invented a new product.
Yeah, they're going to be trying to order this. So once this mortar bed is poured and is cured up, from there, I can go ahead and apply my topical applied membrane to my mortar bed. In this case, I'm going to be using Noble TS membrane.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a piece all cut with a hole already in it to accommodate to go around the.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take my modified thin set. I'll take my.
So we basically, we've installed our mortar bed directly up to the SD, so it flushes out with that. And basically, once this mortar bed is cured, we're now going to put the membrane directly on top of it with, in this case, again, a latex thin set, so up to the application.
So I'm going to put modified thin set on the mortar bed. I'm going to keep it off the SD, just keep it clean, much as I can. I'm going to use, 1/8 inch or 5/16 V-notch trowel. You want to make sure you have enough thin set to transfer to the membrane with directional trowel it.
We're installing this just like you would any other thin set application, a little bit finer trowel probably.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you end up with your lines all running in a parallel direction to help get the air out.
Access here. Want to make sure that you get 100% coverage. Okay.
I imagine with this, you probably like your thin set a little bit on the loose side.
You could have a little bit looser, but never mix it where you compromise the integrity of the thin set. Always go by manufacturer's instructions on that. Maybe a little looser, but it needs to be loose enough to transfer.
I notice again here, you're not going on to the NobleFlex. You're staying away from the NobleFlex.
Staying away from my NobleFlex, yep, because I want to keep that clean. Because I'm not going to use thin set to do our seam seal. From here, I will take my 250 sealant, and I'm going to put a large bead 250 sealant here. Okay, you want to add enough in there so when you tool it out that you have 100% coverage on that overlap.
Okay, so this is a waterproof sealant that's going to seal that off.
Yep. Okay, so then I'll take my membrane, and then we will drop that on. Now, I'm going to take a flat side of a trowel. I'm going to go ahead and bond in my thin set quickly so it doesn't move around on me. I directional troweled it. I'm going to work the air out of it.
Now on a large job, you can do this with a roller or.
Yeah, you could use like a laminate roller, or if it's again, a large floor job, you'll use your 75 or 100 pound floor roller to bond this in. Okay. Now that membrane's bonded in, I'll go ahead and I'll tool in my sealant. Okay. First of all, just kind of smear it around both ways. You want to kind of plow it in back and forth so it has the proper coverage on it.
Okay, so you're just using firm pressure with a margin trowel.
Firm pressure margin trowel. Okay. And then once I've kind of spread it around both ways, then I'll go ahead and I'll really start tooling it out.
So you're looking for it to kind of bleed out from the edge of the seam there. So
You want it-
you know it's there.
You want to see that bleed out all the way around. Okay? I like using a margin trowel better than a roller on this because I can get it down very tight to it.
Yeah. Okay, looks like we have a continuous bead around that.
Continuous bead around that. As you can see, when I tool this out, I'm not dragging my margin trowel through my bead that's coming out. I'm trying to keep this as clean as I can.
Right.
And I'll take my margin trowel like a spatula here, and I'll just kind of scoop the excess right off. And I would use a tub towel, which is a great product to clean off your tools and yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And the lamamine that's in the tub towel will actually cut that sealant, keep your tools clean.
Yeah, I found that to be a product that everybody should have in their truck.
No, it's an amazing product. I mean, I have them at home. My fiance, who has a custom closet business, she carries them with her all the time, cleans off all her cabinetry, all grease marks, everything like that too. Have them in the motor home
Yeah,
to clean up, even the fiberglass on the motor home, the stains of that, it will clean that off too, smudges. Okay, we want to make sure that we have a nice, smooth transition and everything is feeling really good around here. No humps, bumps,
Yep.
and that on that.
So that really wasn't too bad. And this system right now would be totally waterproof. I mean, you've got the clamping rings hooked up to the drain or the NobleFlex SD. The membrane's basically bonded to the NobleFlex SD with the 250.
Mm-hmm.
Other than having an upturn on this for a typical shower, we'd be done.
We're done, yep.
Okay.
So if you're a typical shower, you did do your upturns, you did your inside, outside corners, and you use the Noble Seal 250 sealant like you saw here, you can immediately flood test with that.
Yeah.
So the next day you could be tiling with that.
Yeah, so the mud bed is really the bottleneck in this situation. You're waiting to install.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
So now from here, we need to fill in our divot.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to now install our strainer. And we need to set the strainer height. Okay. But we also need to put a weep protector in here too. Right here, okay. All right, so talk about weep protector a little bit. You saw the weep holes, the weep channels, and that every system, this system, or even a water in, water out full mortar bed system has to have a weep protector around it, right?
Yep.
If you don't, it's going to plug up those weep holes, going to plug up those weep channels. And then this area right here, if it doesn't weep properly, is going to have grout staining all the time.
So this is the point where really the smokers and the crew go out to the parking lot and look around for gravels and rocks.
Gravels and rocks, yeah.
That
Yep.
they can bring back in
Exactly.
for weep protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So either you have to use a pea gravel or you can use our positive weep protector.
Okay.
Okay. And that just very easily just goes around the strainer and the drain body and sits in the bottom of that NobleFlex drain flashing. And now I have corrugated channels in here that water will always run through there and weep, and it protects those weep holes.
That's nice. I mean, standing on that, you're not going to poke a rock through the membrane. I mean, the membrane's tough, but I mean, I've seen nails, I've seen all sorts of things.
Well, I've seen crushed up tile, and what is ceramic? It's glass.
Yeah.
And you crush up tile and you throw in there, throwing dry pack mortar on it, and you can cut that membrane, and now you have a leak.
With this, it's staying there. It's not falling out. If you brush off the thing with a broom, it's not being swept away.
It's gonna stay there. Yep.
Yep.
So from there, we have to fill in the divot.
Okay.
And typically, we're going to use a dry pack mortar. We want to use a dry pack mortar or the premix so water can weep through that dry pack mortar to weep out this whole system. So what I'll do is I'll take the tile that I'm going to be using, and I'll take a straight edge, and then we'll come across here like so. Take a straight edge, in this case, just a float, and then run my strainer down, because I have a 1/4 inch per foot slope, but I want to continue that
Yep.
same 1/4 inch per foot slope down to my strainer, and I'll get that
Turn it down until it
turned
flushes out
down.
of the tile.
So it's about, but then accommodate for thin set.
Yep.
I'll need a little bit of thin set here, so I've got just maybe not even 0.8 of an inch or so to accommodate for the thin set that's going to be in my tile to
Yep.
flush that out. Set my strainer in desired orientation. And then from there, I can just go ahead and take my dry pack mortar.
And again, the weed protector is not being moved around as you're putting the mortar bed in here.
I would say it has some tape over the strainer to probably protect it from mortar going down the drain.
Yep.
We're
Well, I
not,
know once in a while people will actually, do a bonded mortar bed here. I mean, if somebody wanted to throw some thin set in there around the perimeter and put the dry pack in there to make sure that it was solid, they could, but probably not
it's good,
necessary.
but it's not necessary with the thickness. Now, if you're using a 3/4 inch drain flashing, and
Maybe.
you would probably want to throw some thin set in there to bond it in, because now we're a pretty thin mortar bed. With this 1/8 inch, we've got plenty of mortar here for it to be what we call maybe self-supporting in here. Okay. So get that packed down in there, and then I'll take a straight edge. I might have to a little bit more here. Or take our float and kind of run this. Packing that in and making that a nice,
So you're just flushing it out with a membrane essentially.
you're just flushing it out, yep.
Yep. So any water that gets into that area will basically go through the dry pack. The weep holes are there.
Weep holes are there.
Not plugging up the weep holes. It'll all just drain away.
Make sure that I have that same slope to it, okay? All the way around. Make sure I maintain the 1/4 inch per foot slope to my strainer.
A little bit of blue tape.
A little bit of blue tape, yep. I would use that in the real world,
Yeah.
just to make sure that I don't drop the dry pack down the drain hole. Okay. I clean off my edges a little bit, tidy it up. Boom, I've got a
Not too bad.
bed. Thanks, Dave.
Again, we're looking for Daves.
Yeah.
If you're-
Wait till I get into the thin set a little bit more.
Yeah,
You're in trouble.
No, that wasn't too bad. I mean,
Yeah.
that was pretty easy. Now you just tile this thing and everything's flushed out.
Mhm.
Despite the fact that that drain didn't line up by 1.25 inches or whatever we said at the beginning of it
Yeah.
there, we're now basically back in business. So, when you show up on a commercial job and you run into the situation,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, right? I mean, you can see that if I run my tile up to here, I'm maybe 1/8 of an inch. I'm allowing for some thin set
Yep.
on this. Yep. And when I lay this in there, I should have a nice flush transition from my tile to the
Perfect.
drain.
Perfect. I don't know if it can get much easier than that, can it, Dave?
But it can.
It can.
It can. Yeah.
How much easier can it get?
Much easier. Much easier.
Well, do tell.
So,
I'll switch sides with you.
sides of it, okay? So we've taken the same concept with the clamping ring drain
Yeah,
and using the divot method,
yeah.
but we've taken our ProBase II foam honeycomb composite base.
Right.
In this case, it's a multi-slope, and we've actually as you can see, we've installed the divot into our base.
So it's a giant SD.
It is a giant SD. Mhm. Yep. These now the ProBase II is a foam honeycomb composite. It's a 3-pound foam base with a 1/4 inch structural honeycomb applied to the top of it. That gives this base a 235 PSI compression rating versus your standard 3-pound foam bases, which are anywhere from 40 to 80 PSI.
You know you're driving me crazy by saying that.
I know I am.
And I see a hammer here.
I know I am. Yeah.
I got it.
I know
I
you
got to
do.
smash stuff.
I know you do.
Not much there.
Nothing.
Now this is a standard 3-pound
This is
foam.
standard 3-pound foam. Wow.
There's a
You can see that big old hole in it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's it again.
Wow.
That's
That's
now. I'm just thinking, not that anybody's going to run around hitting their shower pans with hammers, but on a commercial
Oh.
job, when the electrician shows up to change the light bulb and your freshly set pan and sets the ladder on there,
And it happens.
and somebody small like this guy climbs on the ladder with a 1-inch footprint. I mean, that could go right through.
It's for
Oh yeah.
I mean, shower floor.
shower floor. Yeah. Try doing that now without breaking the tile.
Yeah, with a penny round.
I've already put a dent in it just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do.
Just imagine if you were wearing your high heels in there.
That would be a problem for a lot of people. So this is a strong base. You say 235 PSI.
235 PSI. That's
Okay.
correct. Yep.
Don't need the mortar bed.
So this is custom made to whatever size you'd like. Different depths of the NobleFlex drain flashing depending on your strainer and your clamping ring.
And I just got back up. You said custom sizes.
Custom sizes.
To me,
Yep.
that means you'll make it other sizes than standard sizes, like
Correct.
whatever I want.
So this particular base is only available in our custom program.
Okay.
Which is typically now around a 2-week lead time once we approve the print.
Yep.
And the PO comes in, about a 2-week lead time, we will ship it.
So you make it any size I want.
Any
At the
size you
drain area here, we can play with the depths if I
Yep.
need to.
play with the depth. We can position the drain hole anywhere we want, but it needs to be no less than 10 inches from one side.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, because otherwise
Yeah.
you're going to be real sharp
Yeah.
dive with a multi-slope. Obviously, your perimeter height, you want to keep the same height.
Okay, so you're making it with a uniform perimeter all the way around.
Uniform perimeter all the way around.
Which, I mean, the tile guys gotta love that.
That's what we have done this commercially on several jobs. Now, always with these pre-made bases versus mortar beds, you need to have a flat and level substrate for this base to work properly.
Right.
Yep. And if it's not, you just need to fix it.
So that really is the same installation as what we just did here without the mortar at all.
It is. We've eliminated the dry pack mortar for the mortar bed on that.
Yep.
This base can be put down with either EXT or modified thin set.
Okay.
So if it's got a little bit of a rough surface, you can put a lot of modified thin set and kind of float that in a little bit and get that just right. And kind of
Right.
walk away. But if you want to waterproof that same day, use a speed set mortar, and then you can get on it probably an hour or so once that's cured up.
I'm just thinking that even a smaller base, by the time I went in there with mortar, not counting getting the mortar
Mhm.
to the site, if it's up 32 stories or whatever, but the time that it takes to do this, I mean, I know that it's not days, but you're not doing this in 15 minutes by the time you
No,
level it
no.
out, get the slope and everything else. I mean, you're really realistically
Yeah,
looking
and
at,
it takes a skill set to
Yeah.
do that, where this base over here, your helper can basically, if he can apply thin set, you can put this base in.
yeah, you
And
can,
another thing too, it's lightweight. I can carry 2, 3 of them at a time, especially a lot of large jobs with a buck hoist in it, picking these up versus all the bags of dry pack.
right, wheelbarrows,
And then what do you do with the wastewater on these projects? That's a big problem too.
right.
Now I got to dump all this wastewater all my waste from my dry pack that I'm not using, where all I gotta do is bring up some modified thin set, mix that up, put that base in.
Certainly with renovation work where, you know, whether you're doing it with, you know, bag mortar or whether you're mixing up your own, this going up a elevator that might be still in service for the occupants versus trying to go in there with a construction crew with wheelbarrows and
Yeah, well,
everything else. This is pretty neat and clean.
or if you got steps, you gotta climb up
Yeah.
the paces. These are easy to get
Yeah.
out.
Very nice. So huge time savers.
Huge time saver, yep.
Okay.
Uh,
Well,
With this, I mean, again, modified thin set. With this, we are going to then, once that is put down in, we're going to go ahead and take our clamping ring off, just like we
yep.
did before. And then you're going to use the NobleFlex drain flashing. You're going to modify thin set your sealant like we did before.
Yep.
Modified thin set, and hold that down, or EXT, either one. And put your clamping ring in there. And then once that's in, just like we did before too, we're going to go ahead and put our modified thin set or EXT on our base,
Yep.
seal it, and then tie that in, just like we did
So it's
before
the-
here. We'll put the strainer, the dry pack, the weed protector, and the dry pack mortar.
Exact same situation without the mortar bed.
Yep.
Again, it's not dependent on any particular drain. So when you show up at the job site, you don't really have to worry about the drain other than making sure that you can figure out the depth of it. And the base can be made right to size.
Correct. Yep.
Residential or commercial.
Residential or commercial.
Very nice. Very nice.
Like I said, and if you use a 250 sealant to do all your upturns and everything, I explained before, this whole system, the base and the waterproof membrane, I can immediately flood test this. So the next day I can tile. So 1 day process, the next day I'm tiling.
Right.
Huge time saver.
Yep.
If you're, especially on a large jobs, you've got multiple units and you need to rock and roll these out, especially if you're doing hospitality remodels, your floor at a time, and they need to get these things knocked out as fast as they can to get them back into service. That 1 day is going to make a huge difference.
By all means.
Yeah.
By all means. I mean, I know if you can come into my house and say I can get in and out in 2 or 3 days versus 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 days, you know, you've got that because, you know, most people really don't want you in the house for a week.
No.
If I can do it in 3 days, so.
Right, right.
But
And
it's
you have a perfect 1/4 inch per foot slope to drain,
all the way to the corners.
all the way to the corner.
Nice. Well, that's it. I mean, it obviously can't get any easier than that. Or can it?
But it can.
Well, wait.
Yeah, but wait, there's
But
more.
wait. But wait, there's more. So if you're able to, and you want to replace this drain with our Noble Freestyle thin bed drain.
Okay. So if you're ahead of the game, you can
Ahead
either
of the game, you give
either
the plumber,
plug this in or change this out.
change this out. Mhm.
Either way, okay.
Either way. So our Noble Freestyle thin bed drain, it's either ABS or PVC. And Jake, if you could overhead here. So this drain, first of all, it's a socket weld.
Okay.
PVC glue, socket weld in, right?
Okay.
No need for a Fernco or a no hub fitting. That
Right.
could possibly leak.
Yep.
Especially if you don't have access to it.
So if there was an existing drain, you could basically drop down and cut it off on the inside like you would.
Yep.
And then use the same stub.
Yes. And let's remove this drain here. And then before I install this, I'll talk a little bit more about the drain. So as you can see, it's got a 1/2 inch profile, thick
Mhm.
profile on that.
Right.
okay? So if you're going to use mud, there are muds that'll go from 0 to 2.
Yep.
So you get a very thin bed
Yep.
of mud, especially if you're doing roll-in showers,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So you're not going to have to do much of a recess at all to get a roll-in shower,
Right.
or build up your dry space a little
Right.
bit too to get that. So if you can get the plumber to put the stub in, and leave you just a stub up, and then you can come in with your cutter, inside cutter, and then cut the stub down to 1 3/4 inches below the substrate.
Okay.
Then you'll have the proper engagement.
Okay.
Put your glue on, stick it down in there, and then easily installed to the surface. Again, like I said, 1/2 inch profile.
Right.
Now, one of the greatest features of this drain is the clamping ring.
It's a thin ring.
It's a very thin stainless steel ring, easily installed. You know, with four screws. Weep protection
Yep.
already incorporated in it. It's ICC, IAPMO approved. So once this drain is in, now we can either use mud or our ProBase II multi-slope,
Yep.
as you saw before, the thicker version, a
Ah.
much thinner version, but we pre-waterproofed it with NobleSeal TS on that.
So we have gone from a foam tool to a pre-made
Yep.
SD with a
Mhm.
foam on it.
Yep.
To a commercial version, and now we've got one that's pre-waterproofed and it's only a 1/2 inch thick at
1/2
the
inch
drain.
thick at the drain, yep. So very easily installed again, modified thin set on our substrate, NobleSeal 250 sealant on the drain body.
Yep.
And then you'll pre-cut it and dry fit it and make sure it works. Then once that's in, flip it over and it engages around the drain
Yep.
perfectly.
Perfect fit.
And then from there, we'll go ahead and take our gun here with a Phillips bit. And once I've found my drain hole, you can feel the screw holes right through it here. Get the first one. Poke it through.
So for any architects we have here, this is certainly something to consider for a specification where, you may be in a hurry, or, you may want a system with the
It's up.
components all lined up at a low elevation. Specify the Noble Company drain with ProBase II. You're, pre-waterproof 1/2 inch at the drain. So it's a lower elevation profile than some of the other systems that are out there. The honeycomb on top of it, we got 235 PSI of strength. And then, the drain strainer is flushing out
Install my clamping ring. I'll cut out
the little
the
excess trim there.
Yep. Okay. And then from there, our strainer can be installed. Make sure that you get it in so it doesn't cross thread.
I can see,
It's gotta freely.
No, you got that one sideways.
Yep. That's like any of the plastic ones. You have to. That's laid plans, right? Okay. See, freely goes now,
Yep.
right? And you can see how thin.
Well, that's
That's
basically flat to the membrane.
Flat to the membrane.
Wow.
Quarter inch towel, maybe max. So, and then you whatever thickness you want. Now, we made this strainer 4 7/8 square.
3 7/8.
The reason we done that.
3 7/8.
I'm sorry, 3 7/8 square. Yep, 3 7/8 square. The reason we did that is your typical 2x2.
Yep.
You can take 4 of them out and it will go over this
Brilliant.
perfect with no cutting,
So
a
if that,
nice, clean,
if that strainer was
outline.
actually 4 inches, you'd be nipping tiles.
like some of the other ones are. If you measure this one over here, it's probably about 4 1/4.
Yep.
We decided to go this route here.
Yep.
This.
4 1/2.
4 1/2 on the other one over there. So anytime you're using 2x2, 2x2 is still very widely used.
Yep.
As far as a base tile.
Yep. So it goes down to 1/4 inch.
Mhm.
It's, low profile. It's available in
Yep.
several different colors, including, I believe that's the flat black, or is that bronze?
This is the oil rub bronze with
Okay.
oil bronze, flat black, brushed nickel, golden nickel, chrome.
Very nice.
Like I said, you can see nice, smooth transition.
Yep. So
No dry pack mortar involved.
this installation you're looking at, not counting installation of the drain itself, but just the base, you're looking at 15 minutes.
Yeah. So with this, if our base, our typical 32x60 is 1.25 inch height at the perimeter.
Yep.
Drop your substrate down to, in your wood frame construction, drop your substrate down to the top of your floor joists, flush.
Yep.
Now you got a 3/4, throw a 1/2-inch backer board in your dry space, and now I can do a roll-in shower very easily without getting into any structure on
Yeah,
that.
no, yeah, totally curbless. Very nice. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up everything. I don't know, Dave, do you have anything that you want to throw out there that we missed, or we certainly welcome you on board. We're excited to have you.
Yeah.
Looking forward to having a good time here.
I think one question people may have is, would you consider this a water in, water out?
It's kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it is. I mean, you've got a thin bed method where all your water is going to weep between your tile and your membrane and get to the drain flashing, and then that area right there is a water in, water out area,
Yeah.
Right.
or water in,
So,
water in, water in, water out area. Yeah,
So yeah, it really is a hybrid.
it is a hybrid. Mhm.
Okay.
But again, not with just our NobleFlex drain flashing, but it's been widely used in the industry with the divot method.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah,
Some
I know.
guys will use liquid to do it. Now, but this NobleFlex drain flashing is more of a bulletproof installation.
Right.
One big piece of membrane.
Yeah, I know that the NobleFlex, the original legs, have been out for pushing 20 years now.
20 years now. Mhm.
So it's got a pretty good track record. That's really, I think, all we have. I hope that we gave you some information here to use when you show up at the next job and the drains don't line up, that there are solutions to it without panicking. We've enjoyed this, Dave. I know you're going into semi-retirement.
Summertime, I'll be
So-
around. I'm going to help Dave DeKam out, guide him. I don't really know if you really want to follow my ways.
You don't.
You know, but I'll be around. But Dave will be taking over more of the webinars and that. And I've really enjoyed doing this over the years.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun
Yeah.
doing this. And
Yeah,
I hope everybody out there has enjoyed them too and has learned a little bit.
Yeah, after this, we're going to be doing a giveaway. We're going to give away a 38 by 38 inch ProBase II with a drain of your choice. So we'll be contacting somebody with that. Right now we do not have plans for our next webinar, but we'll come up with one. We'll probably drag new Dave into it, and you can stand back and heckle us. But anyhow, I mean, with all that said, again, thank you very much. We enjoyed doing this. We're glad you were here today, and thank you again.
And we'd like to get your feedback on this. And if you have any other ideas of different webinars that we could do, by all means, let us know.
Perfect. Thank you.